Welcome to Talking in Stations for June 23rd. I am Matterall. We're going to do some news here. We have with us today Abby Rova. It's going, Abby.
Hey, everybody.
And Shen is here.
Hello, hello.
Okay. For the first time, you're actually a little bit loud, so I'm going to turn you down. And today, some of the stuff that we're going to cover is the monthly economic report. We'll have just a quick look at that. We'll probably cover that more in depth on Saturday after we've had a chance to look it over and do all that stuff. And then we're going to look at something that came out today. What's it called? The Hunter's Boon?
Hunter's Boon.
Yeah. We'll have a look at that. What is that, Abby, real quick? What's the top line?
Yeah, it's not out on Tranquility. It's just out on CC for testing. I mean, the top line is removing skill point losses from T3 cruisers when you get one blown up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a nice booster for cloaking and a covert Sino beacon.
Yeah, it's a cool little update. We'll take a look at it. And then the last thing is another mechanics change, and that is they took they changed the color in EVE Online, some of the shaders. They pulled the gray out. I can talk more about that with my some of my art background about grays and blacks inside of shadows and why that's different. So we'll cover that as well. Then we'll get some player news. That is what we're going to talk about today on the June 23rd, 2021 for EVE Online. All right. First of all, how have you guys been? Shen, Abby, you guys are good?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Yourself?
Pretty good.
Any reason there why you were late, real quick, getting the show running? You all shook
That's
up?
Right. Yeah, I was right when I was rolling. Actually, we were pre-rolling. An earthquake hit the house, and this is the second time that it's been a push. So there's different kinds of earthquakes. Some of them are like you're on a boat and it's kind of moving back and forth, and it's a rolling kind of sensation. And then other times it feels like you're being shoved up into the air and down. And it just depends on the type of earthquake that it is. So that one was weird because it was, and this is the second time in about 2 months, there's just an isolated wham. The house just gets hit and it shakes. It's almost like something really heavy fell outside the house and just created a huge noise and shook the house. And then, but what was weird about this one is a few seconds later, there was a little bit of a ripple. So it was kind of like, oh, I'm not on settled ground. And that was kind of weird. But yeah, it's California. It's a seismic area. So this is par for the course. I used to actually really like earthquakes. I felt like somebody was rocking me on a hammock, because usually I was laying down. Until you get into a big earthquake, and then you never want to experience that again. Ever. Yeah, orbital bombardment is what it felt like. Thanks for asking, Abby. That's why I was disoriented. Now I feel a little more oriented.
Good.
Let's have... Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Are you on CC there?
I'm not on CC there, but let me...
Good.
Okay, why? Do you have... when you can, share CC and we'll have a look at some of the new stuff. Shen, what do you say? Let's go through some monthly economic stuff. Nothing too deep, but, we'll just open it up.
Sure.
All right, you might need to turn yourself down a little bit or not get so close to the mic for the first time. Usually you're really quiet. Monthly economic report for 2021 inside of EVE Online's economy. The big takeaway looking at the production versus destruction map is, oh my, how production has fallen. That's the red line there. And you can see that it has taken quite a tumble. We'll get in close here. That's pretty much since production tightened up with costs going way up. And there may not be needs to actually build a lot of things since there are stockpiles that people prepared for. So they had about a month notice. And so the actual production slows down. It doesn't mean that the quantity of products on the market has slowed down. So But you can see it's having an effect. People not building, not with these new realities, shortages of new ingredients they need for their buildings, for their ships, for their modules, for all that stuff. Sorry,
Yeah.
just ships.
Yeah, I mean, right now, kind of industrial, it's divided into three categories, I feel like. One is the really small ones where you can only do frigates to battle cruisers, where it only requires minerals. And the second category would be kind of like Kenneth level of just everything. You can make everything from frigates to titans on a mass scale. And the third one is instead of going from the left side to the right side of the tech tree or the ship tree, you go from bottom to top. So you do T2 or T3 production. So we're seeing there's a giant gap between, so just for T1 production, there's a giant gap between very small industrialists and very big industrialists.
Yeah. So I said industry change announcement. If I said that, that's kind of where we peg the beginning of this event. But it's actually been an upgrade to industry that we were talking about for T1 ships. And that's actually what's gone through a lot of the stuff. Okay, looking at, looking at mining, and these are the blue and the yellow line. Let's see, these are mined is yellow and destroyed is blue. You can see the destruction levels have actually gone down as well. Now we are in the middle of a war, but it's in a lull phase. It has been for a month. Interestingly, it's I'm looking at the destruction line here. Maybe we can look at it on a different view. But it seems to have flattened out for the last 2 months. Actually, that's June, so this is May. Now, it went down in April, and it is now flattened out in May. So it's not actually continuing to drop, although the activity has continued to slow. So I'm not sure what that accounts for.
That's clearly the base level cost of all the Athenors Pappy are throwing at the 1DQ constellation, and plus the losses they're suffering from like goon harassment fleets and stuff and guerrilla warfare. As well, like add all that up, and there's your base level.
Right. Well, anyway, so the war is not overheated, but even when it was, you could see it was maybe. Let's see what the increments are of these lines. Try to make this up. So each one of those is half a 500 billion ISK, which, if you think about it, can be one big fight, depending on the fight. But in this case, let's have a look at the difference here. We're down about 400 billion per month as far as damages go, and that's significant. But it's not extraordinarily significant. We'll see how this continues. It may actually go a little bit lower or just stay in this flat line. It has been flat all through May and into June. Even though this report doesn't cover June specifically, you can see that it goes past that reporting point. And it just looks like it's real steady for now, like a month and a half. So
I think it might actually start to dip a bit lower as the summer, gets a bit warmer and vaccine rollout and things opening up.
yeah,
It hasn't really dipped below that line since October 2019 there, right? That's when it just dipped below it.
Okay. Let's look at something else. Shen, you wanted to look at this. We'll see if we can bring it up here. This would be the Triglavian stuff that went on. Remember, we had big battles, and there's definitely some stuff going on with Triglavian space. This is the amount of money that's made by commodities, I believe. That's what this looks like.
Yeah, so when you do Abyssal Dead Space, you will get something called the the Triglavian datasheet, which is something you can basically turn to Concord for ISK. The same thing as blue loot in Wormhole. So we call it the red loot here. So we can see on the graph there's a dip in the Triglavian data that got handed into Concord, which indicates that less people are doing Abyssal Dead Space. And one of the reasons can be that after the industrial change, all of the Triglavian ship, T1 ships right now, requires those new materials, which means that they are very, very hard to produce on a mass scale. So that means less people are producing it, which means that less requirement for the abyssal material. And therefore, the price went down. So therefore, it's not worth it to really run those sites.
Let's see.
Or even if you are running them, you might be stockpiling your red loot, maybe for.
Red loot never changed its value.
Yeah.
The trade material, the crystalline isogen 10, and the isogen. Oh no, Christian, what's the other one? 0-point condensate. 0-point condensate.
Yeah, sorry. By red loot, I meant Triglavian stuff that isn't red loot. Yeah, you're correct. The red loot is the NPC, like the wormhole blue sleeper loot.
Yeah, it's like E-War, right? It's colored per empire. Green is Galente, blue is Caldari. Well, if it's red loot, it's from Triglavian space, which is red. If it's blue loot, it's from wormholes.
Which aren't all blue, but yeah.
Yeah. That's why I stopped talking, because my whole analogy fell apart. Let's have a look at the marketplace in the actual game. I was trying to see if there was any. These are Overseer arts, but I think my graphics are a little screwy.
The Overseers, the big spikes there is when they're dropping for events, as they've been doing recently. They're they usually come from like dead sites and stuff, but CCP's been putting them in the events, which is great.
Yeah, so we're just taking a look at all these different tiers. Whoa, Anyway, those are Overseer effects. That's the kind of stuff that you turn in for ISK in Triglavian space. What was our conclusion here that you wanted to point out? It's just production. The demand has stopped for it, or not the demand, but the
too high. The price is way too high. Well, it's too hard for industrialists to produce on the same level that they used to before. For those Triglavian ships, especially T1 nowadays.
Okay, so that's another takeaway. We'll dive more into MER. You can find the MER in this new Google Doc. We'll go ahead and put that into our Twitch stream so you can check it out in actually a slideshow format. And that's going to be really handy, because normally they give you a PDF that you have to download. You get a few slides, but it's not the whole report. You have to download the report, and it is in the form of individual PDF pages. Let's take a look at market value per region. And of course, that gigantic tower that dwarfs everything else is Cheetah, or the Forge. That's a region. And this is what we were just looking at. Commodities. Historically, how far back does that go? That goes to, hard to see. Still hard to see. 2000 and hard to see. Probably 18. That's not as helpful as the actual document. I guess the preview is a little bit off.
Keep your distance in chat is asking, has anyone bothered making capitals yet? Yeah, I know someone who's made a few caps. More just because they wanted to work through the whole process.
Yes, the people are practicing. They're not doing it for profit. These are industrialists that want the real world experience as opposed to the theoretical experience. Did you guys notice anything in imports and exports that's worth noting? It can be deceptive, but maybe there was some kind of a story somewhere.
The only big story is, again, Veil is absolutely killing it in like mining and ratting outputs.
Vale being the home of the group that affiliates with and is Fraternity and Winter Coalition. This is actually the top 10 sinks and faucets. So for those who don't know, sinks and faucets, game concept for money, sinking out into the drains and away from the game, and faucets that are turned on to reward players with money. And so between the sinks and the faucets, you have the pool of water or the pool of money in the game. And so when you see things draining from the game faster than the faucet is providing water, that means money is going out of the game. There's more, the pool of water is getting smaller and smaller. You get the concept. And there's been major changes to this, which makes this hard to read. Something went wacky down here. We'll look at that in a second. But you can just see that for a long time, and even if you extend this over 2 or 3 screens, which we don't have available since they only start at 2018, but we've put the maps together all the way down 2014, and we can see this giant climb up to 2019, where there was a ton of money being made in nullsec ratting. And then we see this gigantic valley here that just looks like in between 2 mountains. That was a period of blackout for 66 days, where it was too hard to rat with any great capacity, and therefore everybody stopped doing it, and it just dropped. Then they lifted blackout, and people returned more or less to ratting in nullsec. And then they changed the whole system. So you can see here the ESS update marks the end of measuring the amount of money that nullsec was making. And the ESS was a complete revamp of how you were harvesting out in deep space. They took a section of the money that you would naturally earn, like 40% of it, and they took it away and they put it in some place that was basically up for grabs. So you could have it if nobody took it from you within 3 hours. And as you can see, it fell really low right after that happened, and then people adapted, and it's starting to move back up. So bounty prizes now, let me do close up there, looking like they're getting close to commodity market. The commodity market is different than bounty prizes. If I go out and shoot some kind of we call them rats, but a pirate, and he blows up, I get coin in my purse. Boom. There's nothing to it. I kill it. I see the money in 20, is it 20-minute ticks or?
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes.
20.
Yeah. So if I kill 50 rats or NPCs in 20 minutes, I will get a big payment, a lump sum. And so when people say I get 20 million per tick, they're talking about every 20 minutes I can generate 20 million, or some people generate, hundreds of millions per tick. And that's how they measure how fast they're making money. So that's the language of that. And when they changed the ratting opportunities, you see commodities became more of, more lucrative. And what commodities are, instead of, shoot rat, get money in your purse, you get something that drops that you need to pick up, and then you need to take that thing to an NPC vendor, and you need to turn it in. It's like taking dog tags off of a Target or something. So that's because they have that inside of EVE Online, which is why I bring up the topic. If you shoot certain pirates, they drop tags, and you take those tags and you turn them in for actual ISK. So the difference is that the commodity market takes a little bit longer, and there's more risk because you have to make it to the market to turn in the tags. You can get intercepted, you can get hijacked, you can get blown up on the way to the market. So that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Also, those commodities include both the wormhole blue loot, but also the overseers effects, which is from the dead sites, which are high, low, and nullsec. Also, I believe that graph doesn't include like the payout as tokens, because that will go in the commodity bracket, I believe. When you steal someone's ESS, you don't steal money from them. You steal like this overseers effects, or like this blue loot.
A commodity.
You steal a commodity, an item, which you actually now need to move too high sec or low sec and sell to an NPC vendor. Quick trick: if you are in a hostile space and you steal their money, you can warp to a structure, drop it using the little drop arrow if you select it, and there's a little move to cargo, even if it's a hostile structure, and then you can just asset safety that out and wait a month and then just get it or whatever. It's a neat little trick.
Yeah, so Caleb says the graph does not include ESS tokens, which I think is what you're talking about.
Yes, yeah, that's the name of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Shen, you were going to say something?
I'll just say, like, the money that you have in the ESS, a lot of time just take it in your mind, just as if you're not gonna get that, because there's a high chance, well, nowadays, with the amount of time that it takes for you to actually wait out the ESS, just think that money does not exist for you. If it is, then it's a bonus.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that squiggly green line, I believe that is Blueprint Market.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck happened there? This would have been in April. And
again, coming up to the industry changes.
Yeah, but look how steady it is. We're talking about blueprints, right? I'm trying to figure out what's so steady about blueprints. And we don't know if these are just original blueprints or copies, but it's relatively steady.
It should be just BPOs.
Yeah.
Originals, okay.
Yeah.
And then it goes, I mean, it just falls. This is the amount of money being drained out of the game, basically, by the purchase of blueprints. Because if you buy a blueprint, you buy it basically from the game.
Yeah, most of the time you're buying your blueprint originals from a NPC buy order, unless it's like off a contract and it's already researched, which you can't sell on the market anyway. So what this would be is you have an average consumption of people buying blueprints. All of a sudden, there's a massive industry change coming up, and people don't know what's going to happen. So you're not going to buy a blueprint to spend time researching it, not knowing the outcome of that. So I believe that first initial drop is people not buying their blueprints. Now that second ramp up in the middle would be people probably buying these new blueprints that came out. So there was the new reaction formulas, their NPC buy orders. So that would spike up and kind of return as people are buying stuff, and then go back down again, because it was only a quick blip of new purchases. So then towards May, then it's kind of returning to normal. So if you ignore that spike in the middle there, it does kind of form a natural curve back up. So blueprint production or blueprint purchases from the market is slowly returning to a normal level. It just had that mad spike in the middle where everyone would have bought the new ones.
Yeah, it's dramatic how that wait and see attitude just stops the normal progression of things, if that's what it is. It's a good explanation as any.
I mean, it falls off a cliff because, I mean, I know people that weren't buying blueprints. No one was buying blueprints. It spikes up because everyone had to buy these new blueprints, the new reaction formulas, sorry, and start researching them and making those new components, these new intermediate materials put in, and then things are kind of slowly returning to normal as people have figured out what these industry changes mean.
Yeah. All right, one last thing. It's a nice slow incline for incursions payouts that are coming up. And you can see that started in January 2020. And it's just been slowly climbing. It's got a nice.
Hold up, is that, sorry, the lower it is on the graph, the more money is being spent on them. I thought it was.
Yeah. So if you look at the left side of the graph, it's actually minus.
Yeah, this is negative. This is tax money.
Okay. So it's the inverse then. So
no
one was.
You're right, because when you buy it from the store, you pay a tax on it, and so it gets drained out. or actually you're paying the NPC, so it's draining out of the game. So that's a negative. These are the sinks down here, and these are the faucets. Well, it made sense to me. Are you there?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry. So the line is 0. So as it gets away from the gray line, it goes up. So that big spike is the increase. Yeah.
It still made sense. What you said made sense. Again, I was looking at this. The incursions, nice and gradual, very steady. That looks like a success, right? Nothing too erratic. Not much is affecting that either, which is interesting. Okay, let's move on. Again, we'll look at this once we actually look at the numbers. This is a kind of a hot take on this sort of thing. I'll just look at where the density of activity is, financial. Oh, I always like looking at this one, the velocity of money. Yeah, this ought to look different than usual. You see how that drops right at the end there? That's probably commensurate with...
Right. Yeah, Caleb was saying that earlier on. The velocity's kind of...
tanking. See that? Oof, since April, just come way down. That's probably got to do with the uncertainty of the financial sector's final costs. So people are probably holding on to money. I don't know if there's a huge amount of investment going on. Maybe a little bit of, I don't know, the stockpiles, though, should be moving, right? Because people are trying to get in on things. Sometimes if you feel like something is expensive, you're mad at it and you don't want to buy it. But sometimes you look at that same item and you think, if it's expensive now and it's only going to get more expensive, I better buy it now. And so sometimes inflation is made worse by that run on the items. So I'm thinking in terms of stockpiles that would cause people to buy things, which would exchange money and create a higher velocity than is there. But basically, you're losing momentum by, what is that, 0.4? Actually, this is a rating system from 0 down here. And this is an obvious decline in activity. This is how much money is passed from person to person. How many people are buying things, collecting money, and then they in turn turn it around and buy something else. So
yeah, if I buy a loaf of bread from you and I give you $5, you've $5 have been
that counts as 1. And then if I take that money and I use it to buy something, that counts as 2. And I think the average is like.
Well, I think you made a very good assessment in what you were saying about how people might approach the market. Some people might look at the cost of a ship as being too high and not buy it, and some people look at it as a market opportunity and an investment. I just think this is showing that more people are not looking at it as an investment, or at least not enough is being moved around, because you can trade battleships or battle cruisers and cruisers all day, but unless capitals and super capitals and titans are moving, because that's so much money, it takes a lot of battleships to get to the cost of a titan.
Yeah, another mindset will be the price right now is inflated to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So people are waiting and trying to wait out the price basically for the capitals and super capitals. Even though to some degree they are going to go up by just production cost in general, but people still have the hope that maybe the things can go back to somewhat normal compared to before the change.
Well, don't hold your breath. I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that scarcity isn't something that they just turn off. It's like this is the new normal. It's get used to it. This is the amount that will be at. What may change is you may see new incentives for gameplay that reward you better. But you also, I guess you may see some tweaking on the formulas, but overall the superstructure that supports it all, the way that the ships are now split out into many different harvestable ingredients to put into a ship, that's not going away, and that won't be combined again. I can't imagine they would scrap that. It's just an impossibility. But what they may do is turn down some of the stuff that is bottlenecked too hard. And that was the whole purpose of diversifying the ingredient base. so that they could target specifically where there were some pain points without affecting other things. But this is the new normal. I would not be calling for CCP to stop this scarcity thing. That to me seems like you're telling God to, stop the sunshine kind of thing. It's a fact of life. It's the new normal.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like being subtle hints dropped out that hasn't been brought up. So yes, I think people who think the cost of capitals or supers is going to stay the same are crazy. It's going to go up to 70 billion or whatever the ridiculous quoted number is. But there's things coming in like capital combat anomalies that has been, one or two lines in a dev blog here or there. Maybe the ISK payout for doing capital anomalies in nullsec is going to be ridiculous, and it'll be so much that the 70 billion ISK cost of a supercarrier won't be that high.
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it, but maybe it's not going to hurt as much as it does right now. And there might be more
If we do a
incentive to
simple
use them.
math, if we do simple math, a super carrier before about 20 billion, 25 billion fitted, and it's making about 100 million per tick. Right, and now a super carrier is about 80 billion if we do the this material cost. That means you have to at least make 400 million per tick in order to match the ratio before.
Yeah, but maybe you'll make like 200.
If you're gonna do that,
250.
400 million per tick. That's money that they make. Well, that means risk and reward is not matching.
All right. Just looking at some of the commodities that give us an idea of the value of money. Plex is a good one. And we can see it's taking a substantial move up, which it's not surprising because it was trending up. But it's at 2.6 and it was 2.5 not long ago. You can see the medium price here is at 2.53. That's in between what it's selling for and what people are offering it for. But just a day ago, it was at 2.49. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're trading thousands of these things on one order, it starts to add up. But that's interesting that it's starting to. I think it's starting to. Well, we'll see. That's the weekend. I think that's a weekend price, so that might be a little deceptive. I wanted to check one other thing that we looked at yesterday, and we're doing market all of a sudden, but and we'll get back to where we were. Here's extractors, and those track very closely with Plex, and you can see it's so funny because even that jump, that hop up right here, it totally mirrors Plex. That's how closely aligned they are. Whatever Plex does, extractors do, but not injectors. Injectors is a little more of a commodity because it depends on the extractor plus the value of skills. And look at this, continues to tank. It went the opposite way, which is really weird. I think people are in need of cash right now and are just selling injectors at discounts. And therefore, the price, the sellers are chasing the buyers and the price keeps dropping. That's a very strange pattern. It should go up. It's delayed. It's a lagging indicator, but it still isn't responding to the Plex price, the Plex trend. I think that's people trying to get cash that have injectors. I think that's probably what that is. And why would they need to get cash? Probably because it's necessary for them to get involved in buying things. That's my guess. Okay, again, we'll look at that a lot more a little bit later, looking at the mineral price index along with the consumer price index, the principal and the secondary markets. One thing that has been just unbelievably explosive was the mining price index over the last, I guess, since the beginning of scarcity. You can see that harvesting minerals became a bigger, how do you put this? It became harder to do, which meant that the prices of existing minerals went up, because if you can't harvest asteroids as well as you did, you can't refine them into minerals, then there's less minerals. And so demand pressure on that will drive the price up. And we've never seen it as big as it got. I'll pull out. This goes back, I believe, 3 years. You can just see it was mostly steady here at this level for the duration of the game, really, for years and years and years. And then it just went nuts. Like after scarcity went all the way up. So prices to build ships went way up. And now it's coming back down. Do you guys have any idea why it's coming back down?
Because no one's building anything.
No, it's because minerals are no longer as necessary to build.
Yes,
as
capital.
they
Yeah,
were. Yeah.
Is it just normal ore or say Mungu as well? Because all those Nosec people, they're creating a lot of hack fleets nowadays. That's the only thing they can do, right? Those normal like capital builders or capital manufacturers that used to build dreads or carrier, they can't do that right now. The only thing that they can do is hacks. That's somewhat profitable.
Yeah. Well, they can. They would just lose money, right? Because nobody's going to buy something that they build for 50% more than the market will sustain right now. There's a reason for that. Let's look at the capital stuff. If you have a capital ship, to build it would cost you, let's say, well, let's do something that I think I have on the top of my head. But if you're building a super capital ship, right? Now those things used to sell for like 10 to 14 billion. Well, actually, a long time ago, they sold for about 24, 25 billion. Then they slowly came down in this age of prosperity to about half that price because there were so many minerals and they needed to absorb those minerals into something. And so you poured all those minerals into these big ships. And so they got down to 50% their normal value. Well, after scarcity, that price goes not only back up to their old value of 24 billion, but it basically triples or doubles. It goes up to about 70 billion. Huge building costs compared to what it was. But they sell for like around 40 billion. So why are they selling for 40 billion if to build one cost 70? Well, the answer to that is that's what it costs right now because there are choke points in the production lines that all these people are racing for these new ingredients and they're being used on a whole series of things. So there's more demand on that. So the price goes up for that, which means the actual build cost goes up to 70 billion. It may actually reduce over time when things settle out. But the reason that it's way down, say the build price is actually 60 billion, not 70 billion, right? People are still buying them at 40. How is that possible? It's because there are stockpiles and people who own them bought them for 15 billion or whatever, and they're going to make a huge profit even if they unload it at 40. So it's worth their while to unload it at a discount. And the people who are buying, if they wanted to, they should buy super capitals now because you'll buy them at discount because of the surpluses. That's kind of what's going on in the super capital world. And I think if you look at capitals, it's kind of a miniature of that. Same thing with dreadnoughts, basically, same ratios and that sort of stuff. So I think the minerals that were very, very expensive are just not as in demand. And that's why you see this thing dropping. Really huge drop here in April from, let's see if I can see what that number is. 320, I think that's not billion. I think that might be more. No, it's a price index, so I don't know what that is, but it drops from 320 down to, I want to say about 240. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there with the removal of a lot of the like Tech One minerals, your trit and stuff out of the bigger ships and replacing the costs with PI or other materials. Your trit and your lower end minerals is more in your frigates, your destroyers, your cruisers. While your higher end materials, I don't know, say just as an example, ISO or Nox or Mex, they're using your battleships along now with PI and stuff. So they've also kind of balanced it out in that sense.
Yeah, this is the longer view of it. This is since 2003. So this is the entire game path. And you can just see we're way off the scale here with minerals. And we still are. We're higher than we've ever been, even with this giant drop. It needs to go a long way before it gets back into the more or less normal range that it was at here. Again, minerals are expensive when they're high. They're cheap down here when they're low. This is actually when I joined the game, right around here. And minerals were not that expensive. Okay. But again, minerals don't matter as much as they did before. So not only did CCP change the demand for minerals, but they changed the whole use case for minerals, which is why we're at a new normal. Things will never go back to the way they were because the game simply doesn't demand the same things it demanded before. All right, this is destroyed value. So where are the battles these days? Kind of hard to find. Let's look at Delve, though. That should be where everything is really happening. And it turns out, not really.
Yeah, not really.
These two towers that you see here are destruction values, and those two towers are basically 3 Tech D probably. And then I don't actually see a second tower. It might be 5 DQ over there. That might be. So that's what's going on there. Aquarius and everything else looks rather pacified, especially Canid and stuff. But if we go up to, let's go up to. Well, it's funny. Look how much is being destroyed here in HiSec. But if you go up to the Citadel and even north up into Tribute and Vale, I wanted to see what Fraternity was doing and if there was more stuff. And it looks like it's rather normal. So a few spikes here in low sec, bordering on Tribute, which would probably be OB or something. Those are low sec near nullsec, and those are basically transition points where people will set up traps and gate camps and get you when you're trying to transition from low security space to nullsec. Okay. Boy, I think we're going to leave this for Sunday, but I just get into it when I start looking at it.
Yeah. Should we move on to the...
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, one more thing. Look at that. A lot of activity in high security space. Not that much everywhere else in comparison. So, all right, we'll let that go, Shen. Sorry, I went for a meander. Let's see what's next here.
Hunter's Boon.
Yep. Hunter's Boon. This came out today. It was kind of a shocker, right? Like this was really in
finally. Sorry, but like as someone who used to fly Tech 3 cruisers when they were amazing and still flies them even though they're awful. Finally, we are getting no skill point losses when you get blown up in a Tech 3 cruiser. Ladies and gentlemen, after like 6 years, they have finally done it.
Just saying this is still on CC. It's not on TQ yet. Don't get too excited.
Yeah, don't get killed right now because it'll be for now.
Yeah, I'm not giving you skill points.
For that.
It's a good reminder there.
No, this is great. So this is just like a series of changes that have hit Singularity or CC, the test server. It's basically focused on hunting, and this kind of links in with the Black Ops changes we saw recently that just hit Tranquility. The big thing is there in the last couple of weeks we had the mobile Sino beacon. So if you remember this, it was a deployable. You drop it in space. It would last half an hour. You get a Sino. You'll be able to jump a ship to it. So I mean, there was a few uses for them, but I mean, theoretically, one person could move a capital himself or something. But what we're getting now is a covert version. So this is going to be about the same cost. It's got like the same building materials so far. I mean, this is all subject to change. But it's going to allow you to drop a Sino, which is a covert Sino, which means only your covert ops, your black ops will be able to like bridge and jump people to. This is really cool because this is also going to be like really useful for like hunting and fleets like Spectre Fleet or Bombers Bar or anyone that uses Black Ops battleships. We've seen the Imperium use Black Ops battleships to great effect on the Pappy forces. now you can just have any ship carrying this module. They can drop it, and then you get a free covert sino. On top of that,
I'm just
yeah,
waiting on an industrial Sino beacon maybe someday. Who knows? So like, let's say if I have two industrial Sino in two systems, I can just have a jump freighter jump back and forth all day long.
yeah, the normal sino and the industrial sino are actually quite low trains in terms of skill points, but the covert sino is requires Sino 5, so it's like a month training solid just to be able to light a covert Sino. This new module so far only requires anchoring 5, so that's like a 15-day train or something. So it's actually half the time to train to be able to light a Sino, which is like really useful for black ops and stealth movement. And again, it could be because the covert Sinos don't show up on the map and stuff. Don't show up on the overview. So this is actually, I bet you the module probably does though. It's not allowed in wormholes. It's not allowed in Poshvin. It's not allowed in abyssal space as usual. It's got a 1-minute activation. It's lasting about a half an hour. Well, exactly 30 minutes. And yeah, it's got the same. It's about 20 million so far to build one. So that's pretty cool. And one other amazing change that came up from the community when they added the mobile observatory, and there was the cloak reactivation, or the cloak immunity delayed, that 15 minutes of immunity you get from cloaking. And there was a lot of talk about people in the community saying that this isn't long enough to be able to move capitals and stuff. So now we're getting a new drug, a new booster.
Oh, let me bring that up on screen.
So this is going to be the. I have it up here on the CC if you want to have a look at me.
Yeah, let me just try to isolate that a little bit better. The computer seems to be having some kind of a fit. Let's see if I can make it bigger. But we have your view now, so you can you walk us through it?
Oh yeah. So just very quick, the covert mobile sinusoidal beacon. Yeah, someone did mention in chat it is 400 meters cubed. I mean that still fits in a frigate. There's frigates that'll fit in, and most ships. That's pretty nice. Here it is in the industry. Needs a bit of PI, some minerals. Again, this price is wrong because it's on CC, but it's working about 20 million ISK, 25 million ISK when you put the materials into Eve Praisal. But this new thing, this new drug, the cloak stabilization booster. So the good news is this is going to take up a whole new slot. So this is a slot 14. I haven't seen that used before for anything. 99% sure that is a brand new slot. You'll be able to take it with anything. And it's going to give you an extra half an hour of cloak stabilization. So it's going to last for half an hour. Now, I mean, I don't know if that happens with Biology 5. The problem is this actually isn't on the market right now. So this drug is here on CC.
Mm-hmm.
I think can't.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think, at least my estimation, that our stream is having a hard time, and it's Twitch. It looks like it's the one having the hard time.
Yeah. So we were just looking at the covert mobile sinusoidal beacon, this new module for lighting a covert sino, like the old covert, like the new, quite recent sinusoidal mobile beacon. What we're looking at here is this new drug, this cloak stabilization booster. So this is going to be a brand new drug. It's going to take up a brand new slot, so it's not going to interfere with any other drugs or combat boosters you're taking. And it is going to give you a booster duration of 30 minutes, it's lasts for, and a cloak stabilization duration bonus of 200%. So for a half an hour, you will not be able to be de-pinged by these new mobile observatories. So I guess if you add that with the 15 minutes originally, maybe it'll be 45. Maybe it's just going to be a straight half an hour. Right now, unfortunately, we cannot buy them. So they're kind of on CC, but they're not really. So we can't fully test it. I mean, if it's like any other drug, Biology 5 is going to increase its duration. So it'll be very interesting to see both how these bonuses stack with like biology and how long it lasts for, plus the actual cost of this booster itself and where it's going to come from. But this really could answer the issue that a lot of people had with the new mobile observatories, which was things like nano supers, moving supers, and other capitals, long distances. When you have fleet ops of 15 or 20 dreads logged off behind enemy lines, and you're trying to catch them and kill their big stuff, dread bombs and other things. So this is actually a really cool feature, and I really look forward to having this in the game properly, and we can get a good test out of it. I mean, potentially with a half an hour, if it lasts for half an hour at Biology 1, I mean, it could last for 2.5 or 3 hours at Biology 5.
All right, cool.
Yeah, it's a really good benefit to those very small niche gameplay, but again, things like the nano supers, those crazy people who take their supers and go hunting other capitals and supers, and again, also moving big ships. And if we're moving big ships through space dangerously, we might catch them and kill them. So that's always a benefit. The other big benefit to the Hunter's Boon update is the reduction of the skill point loss for Tech 3 strategic cruisers. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is not the boost that Tech 3 cruisers need, but it's definitely a helping hand.
Well, let's remind people that when these things were introduced, they came into the game. These are Tech 3 cruisers. They're supposed to be weird mutated cruisers with alien technology that makes them completely different than any other ship in EVE Online, especially at the time when they came out in 2009. So the parts of the ship that you needed to build were actually found in wormhole space. And if you collected those and you built these T3 cruisers, you would actually build different components that you could, it was like Legos, you could mix and match them together. So each race had a combination of like 5 or 6 different areas where you could apply different kinds of modules. So it was incredibly customizable. So in order to make that incentive to use these powerful ships balanced, they came with more risk. And that risk was that if you get destroyed in the ship, you actually lose skill points that were helping you use the ship. And the thing about it was they weren't hard trains. They're like level 1 trains. So that means if you lose skill points, you can get them back in a day or two. It's not a big deal. But just the idea.
About 4 or 5 days.
What?
It's about 4 or 5 days to get the full level 5 skill back.
Yeah, but it didn't take you all the way out. You just lost one level.
Yeah.
You would lose the entire thing.
You lost one level, so you go from level 5 to level 4, and that would take you 4 or 5 days to train.
They're that intensive? I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah, they are.
Okay. Well, it wasn't like a 28-day train, but still, 5 days is a penalty. That's the difference between 4 and 5. If you were level 3 or 2 to 4, that just takes a day or two to get back. The point is, it was higher stakes for a better and more powerful ship. But these things over time were coming in and out of fashion because other ships, like a hack, for instance, is faster and can pack more of a punch and is cheaper. So T3s kind of lost their footing. And so this penalty for using them didn't make as much sense as it might have before.
Also, back then you had to actually like upgrade and insure your clone, because if you insured your clone for 55 million skill points and you trained to 60 million skill points and got blown up, you lost 5 million skill points. And this is all from a time before skill extractors and skill injectors. So you couldn't actually just magic the missing skill points.
Yeah.
So it comes from a time where skill point loss was like really meaningful and seriously important, and was an absolute pain in the arse, and there was nothing you could do about it. Um, Finally, people have been like, "Look, you've nerfed the Tech Tree Cruiser into the ground. It's no longer the massive, overpowered powerhouse that they were." Maybe the skill point loss doesn't really make sense.
Well, you have here CCP saying, we love the idea of skill loss as an ultimate penalty in the game, but we don't think this isolated one-off implementation on the single ship is in the right place. In other words, it's not balanced. But they like the idea, and I think they should embrace that idea, because as you hit, how long's this game been going? Almost 20 years, you need something to take some pressure off the amount of accumulated skill point wealth players have. And I always thought this should be extended to all games. If you fly a capital, you should take some hits. If you fly you should take some skill point losses, and you should just find a way of decaying skill points so that players that have been around a long time have things to skill back into, because after a certain point, you're really just polishing up certain edges. You're not really skilling into anything else because everything's available to you.
But that's directly discouraging people to PvP.
Nah,
Well, no, I don't think so. That is something that has been said, that people won't take the risk, but
so back in the day when like neuting legions were literally like, you would bring neuting legions over a Balagorn. They were so much better. It didn't matter the fact that you lost 4 or 5 days of skill point losses of training. You still saw fleets of hundreds of these things. I would be totally okay with losing the skill points if the Tech Tree Cruisers were the amazing powerhouse beasts that they were back in the day, because I mean they were ridiculous. Okay, maybe not so good, but I mean if they were like even 90% as good as they used to be, I'd definitely take the skill point loss. But they're just not where they used to be anymore. It just doesn't make sense in a number of ways. But this is a really good balance. Like this is great. Everyone's been in favor of this kind of change, and it's removing the skill point loss, removing this outdated mechanic, and I definitely think it's going to see more use.
I know. I guess I'm the outlier yet again. Like I feel like CCP should not take it out, but actually put it into more ships, especially higher end ships, and start to make staying on top like staying in shape.
I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay with losing skill points for a super or a titan, maybe.
And for everything, Shen, for everything about, well, people will fly less, they'll participate less. That may be, but they're not true PvPers, right? Because a PvPer is thinking he's not going to lose; he's going out there to win, and so you're penalizing somebody else. You're making them worse for fighting you, and you're actually doing more damage to somebody than just destroying a ship that they can easily get rid, easily replace, right? You go out there and you PvP, you destroy somebody, and they're like, already replaced. I have 50 of these in my hangar. And it's like, for you, that feeling of accomplishment is now diminished. So the economy works in both ways. As things become more important, as the stakes go higher, the exhilaration of winning gets stronger too. And the agony of defeat gets stronger.
But in another perspective, I would say, is the people who likes PvP, low sec small games, stuff like that, or wormhole games, they're still gonna do their PvP. That's not gonna stop. But what's gonna stop people, or the group of people that's gonna stop if skill point loss is implemented further, will be the people who are on the edge. They are not sure if they should just keep PvE or start getting into PvP, right? And those people right now are seeing, oh, if I get into PvP, I may lose skill points. Yeah, maybe that's just one more incentive to not to let them tell them not to do it.
That's a really good point, Shen. That's a really good point. The people on the edge.
I don't think the people on the edge in the past were flying Tech Tree Cruisers for PvP because they were so expensive and niche.
Yeah. But the mechanic, the skill
point loss.
Yeah, we're talking about the mechanic, the overall mechanic.
Or if skill point loss is implemented to all ships, right?
Oh,
with the tech,
absolutely. No, yeah, it
with
shouldn't
Tech
go to
3
all ships.
change, with the Tech 3 change, right now we have a Tech 3 fleet.
yeah.
So we were told to not train anything. Well, train
Mhm.
offensive subsystem to 5, but everything else to 4, because you are going in with the assumption that you're going to lose the ship.
Well,
So
here,
you're going in with the assumption that you will lose skill point, just lose less.
okay, yeah, but let's talk about archetypes here, right? They've made industry so that you can't just be some kind of PvPer that mostly does that and builds on the side, right? Because now it's hard. You have to harvest all this new stuff. So builders,
No,
hold on a
well,
second.
if-
Hold on a second. Builders now are more builders. Like it's no longer just like every man can do it. Like you got to be a builder. That's got to be the thing that you do. And why not the reverse for PvP? Like maybe those farmers don't need to get into capitals or bigger ships or battleships or whatever to go out there and fight because they're farmers. They shouldn't be able to just transition into fighters and be as effective as anybody else. So those people that are afraid of being penalized for going out there and fighting, maybe that fear is good because it specializes who the real PvPers are in this game.
Okay, I'll give another perspective, which is during this change, if anything, it encouraged people to do ratting with industry. So what you're seeing right now is building a capital, let's say, it's very complicated. You are not able to do it by yourself. That means there are only certain parts of building a capital that you can do, right? Let's say if it's T1 mineral or just some gas or some PI, right? A, a person needs to import, let's say, mungu or gas, right? We're going to get that. You're going to buy them. How can you get the money from? PVE. There we go. So it's encouraging people to do PVE or do ratting while doing industry from a small industry perspective, right? For those big ones, of course, they're gonna sell whatever they make for tier 1, right?
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, the T3 cruiser not getting its or losing its penalty phase, I guess, because it's no longer as OP as it was, seems to bring it back into balance. A lot of people are happy about it that liked T3. I think T3 is going to get looked at too pretty soon. That is totally intuition, just by looking at the trends. And so you might see more action on here. Maybe they're preparing to do some things. As far as the losing skill points to combat losses, that's an interesting thing. CCP says they love it. I saw somebody say CCP doesn't love it. They took it out of clones. And he's right. You know, they have done nothing but diminish this. I've never seen any instance where they increase skill point loss. So if they love it, you'd think they do it at least once or twice in some mechanic. But no, all they're doing is the opposite. They're just taking this out over and over again. So I agree with, I wish I had his name, that if CCP really loves this, they'll put it into more ships. Otherwise, we can assume you're just giving lip service to liking that.
There's also some like things that have yet to happen, but will be upcoming. So like there's balance adjustments for the pacifier and the enforcer.
That's right.
They haven't said anything. They just said they've been postponed, but until the next release, so maybe like 2 weeks. So keep your eyes peeled. I imagine for like the pacifier, which is the frigate. What is it, like a special edition ship? It's the Marshall.
Yeah.
Is
These
the
are the
battleship.
These are the Concord ships.
Yeah,
that
Concord ships. Yeah.
They fixed the
them
Marshall, which was the Black Ops, but they left off the pacifier and enforcer. People were asking, "Hey, where are those?" And
because the pacifier is like a covert ops frigate, and the other covert ops frigates, because of the nullification and warp core stabilizer changes, they got a pass. So they got like extra high slot if they needed it, or an extra low slot. A lot of people are asking where are these touches for the pacifier and the enforcers. So I mean, stay tuned; they'll be coming.
mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting to see. I mean, those ships are silly expensive to begin with, so it'll be interesting to see what they do to like kind of improve them or give them a bit of a balance.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we were looking for those last time. They weren't there. They're gonna be in this patch that's coming up. I want to answer a question, and if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them, and we'll try to answer them. And this was from Rand Korch, who said, no, builders are quitting, or no builders are quitting. I don't know if it's no builders are quitting or no, you're wrong, builders are quitting. So if you could clarify that, I'll know what you mean.
That's why punctuation is important, people.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to take it the way I hope he means it, because I agree with it if it is, and that is that no builders are leaving. In other words, the builders in the game are the ones excited about the production changes and have been the ones that have been eager to adapt to them and see more possibility and see more professionalism in their chosen gameplay, as opposed to every man being able to do what they do, therefore they become irrelevant. And this is something Caleb and I talked about many times, which was people need to have a role to fill. They feel fulfilled when they do it, and they feel like part of a group, and they have something to contribute that not everybody else can contribute to. And so it's important to, I think, to chisel out roles in this game. Sure, you can do multiple roles, but you've got to make a role so beefy that it's not easy to conquer for everybody. So I think that's what we were hoping for. And if that's the same for PvP, because if you lose skill points, I like that. I like the higher risk. I like the idea of an actual PvPer being somebody who's just completely scarred up with, with losses, injuries, It may have the effect of people not wanting to get involved in fleets and all this other stuff, but I kind of feel like, well, it's I don't know. I don't know if it's all about playing tag. I think the game has to be a lot more hard-nosed than it has been in the last 8 years.
Yeah. I definitely think I kind of support the skill point loss over onto capitals. I think that CCP have done so much to hurt capital pilots in the last 12 months with the prices going up and everything. They're probably not wanting to do any more damage in the short term. Maybe after things settle, they might look at adding skill point loss on the big ships. I definitely think a lot of smart builders just stopped building. That doesn't mean they're not builders. It just means they're not currently building because nobody knows how the market's going to work, how the industry is going to work. So the smart builders are the builders that aren't building.
Yeah.
They're doing their research. They're researching their BPOs. They're figuring out their production changes.
They're preparing.
They're finding their niche. They're just trying to work it out so the next 6 months will be smooth.
Some of the really the top builders are, again, trying to get that real world experience. They're not building for profit. That would be a waste of time right now. In the next 6 months at least, wouldn't be looking to make a profit on what you're building. But if you're building to gain knowledge, then you might be ahead of the game. But you're going to make an investment. You're going to lose money on those things. The market isn't really stabilized to a point where whatever you build is worth building if you're looking at ships. Okay. I think... listen, somebody's like, huh? Because I actually take stances that are probably unpopular because I like testing.
You wouldn't say, really?
Right?
Final bit.
Right? Because I can't tell you, like, I can't sit here and enjoy this kind of work, the talk radio or the talking about ideas or giving references, if I was telling you everything you already knew. And a lot of people, I've been here for the entire 5-course meal, right? Let's say 5 out of 7. And some people, just come for dessert or whatever. And it's their idea of what's important and the confines or the parameters of how they think about Eve are really straightforward. They say what they've heard many times over and are convinced that everybody thinks the same way because they're limited in their communication circles. So they think that everybody agrees with this, and then you project that as knowledge. But you have to doubt everything, and you have to look at things from different angles, and you have to look at secondary effects. If you want to understand the deeper complexities of all the mechanics and how they work together. I may not be the most mechanically oriented person. I don't know the stats. I don't know a lot of the way things are put together these days. But that doesn't preclude me from looking at things from different angles and trying to bring up different ways of looking at it as far as overall gameplay patterns, which I think is part of the secret sauce of TIS. But then again, I could just be a boomer and not know what I'm talking about. That's going to get clipped and distributed forever.
You might as well say that again. So sorry,
so
you're a
say
boomer
it, like,
that doesn't know.
Camera.
Yeah. Fix your hair, comb your mustache.
Let me have another take at that. I like
Try
talking to you guys.
Try a different scarf.
Shen, yeah, it's a different scarf. Shen, you made great points there. I appreciate that. Good stuff. Okay, last thing that we wanted to do is have a look at what the, let's see if we can look at that color. What's going on there?
It's pretty.
Tell us what happened. Why does this look different?
They are making the game less depressing. I mean, less gray, I guess, and less gray and dark and shaded, but less depressing. There's a. I mean, this isn't going to be happening soon. This isn't going to be. So on 23rd of June, the Singularity test server will play host to a significant new visual update, including shader adjustments, new lighting changes, the colors of New Eden becoming brighter and deeper, and gradients smoothing out and highlights being better represented. I think there's probably going to be some bugs with this. I just have a feeling with like ships and skins and kill marks and stuff, things might be a little bit rough. But man, does the game look a bit prettier, huh?
Let's look at the before and afters.
Yeah, there's a lovely picture on the dev blog of let me link that to you here.
I got it.
Cool, yeah, of Jita.
Jita floating, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the before. Let's see.
So it's kind of just, I mean, it's less blue, it's less gray, it's less cold. It's kind of more warm. Lava planets and stuff look really cool.
I'm trying to show your screen and the other screen side by side, but I may have to do a before and after. This is the before, so we'll zoom in for a second. Stay on the camera that you have right there. You can see that this is a blue planet, and what there is here is like a gray layer. And this is what I was going to talk about artistry and stuff. At least digital artistry is my limited knowledge of that. This blue planet here ends up looking like this in the future. Can you zoom in a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
It's like purple.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's a huge difference. And so I think the way they describe this, so we're thinking that color might pop a lot more. Yeah, stay on that for a second. Yeah. So there's the before, which is what's there now. And there's the after. So one thing I learned when I was designing photo composition for the entertainment business was a piece of advice I got from a really good art director. He said, never ever put black into your shadows because there is no black in shadows. If you look at it carefully, it's basically different compositions of color that create the shadow. So one of the ways to cheat a shadow, obviously, is to throw gray in it or throw, darker black points. And it just gets darker and more contrasty and it looks like shadow, but it's not rich. So I think what they're doing here is they're taking out the gray point. Is that what it was?
Hmm.
And they're building colors and shadows with just color. That might be what they're doing. I'm not 100% sure.
I think CCB Swift is in the chat and he makes an interesting point. If you go to Parchment right now, it looks like Hello Kitty online.
Yeah. I think we saw a picture of that. Let me grab that because somebody was in Discord showing us that and it was hilarious. There it is. God, it took forever. Sorry about the delay, but that is what it looks like right now. I think that is a Asbel.
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's got some bugs to be ironed out, but so far it's actually really nice. I thought I wouldn't like the brightness because I like my dark modes. But it's actually I found it a lot nicer to play with, and it looks kind of cool. And you catch a planet or you catch a nebula, and it just really pops now.
Yeah, it just looks incredibly saturated to me, which is fine, and I think they'll wrangle it in. I don't like a lot of saturation personally because it's almost like too sweet, you know. But I have a feeling they'll wrangle this in a little bit. It's really nice with the reflections and stuff.
Let's see, like, I mean, look at this.
I just put the picture in the channel. It's on Reddit.
What channel?
It's a
the picture, the structure. Yeah, yeah.
That's always on Reddit. I think someone pointed out in the chat.
Yeah, that's the one I just showed. Were you able to see it?
I think just a delay problem. Yeah, seeing it right now.
But yeah, I'm liking the new look from what I've seen flying around so far.
Yeah, people were able to see it. I'm pretty sure I saw it on what was going out. Okay, so anyway, new color coming into EVE Online. They took out a gray shader. Let's say they took out gray, which means that the color has to make up for the shadowing. So you're going to get a lot more color in the detail of the shadow, which is the proper way to do it. It's the most realistic way to do it. And that does look really good.
See if I can get my ship back.
It's pretty cool. All right. Do we have anything else, Shen?
I think that's all for now. Nothing on the wars. Nothing here. Oh yeah. I guess one accomplishment that we did. Esoteria right now is fully cleared of any Imperium iHub. It's all Mango or Evictus.
So Esoteria completely reconquered, huh?
Yep. Last one was removed. So it's all freed. It's all liberated.
From your perspective, army of Mango.
Yep. It's in the final phase. So we're trying to rest up and maybe find things to do over the next weeks, month, maybe.
Do you know what your plans are there in Esoteria?
I mean, we're told we're going to do something in Impasse, but nothing in detail at all.
Mm-hmm. Impasse, which would mean that you've got more territory you want to clean out.
Okay, I would say probably not us. Like we already own enough territories for our people,
right.
But more renting out maybe.
You'll help clear it out for legacy for Pat.
Yeah, basically, and it's basically us working with fire, probably just like what we did in Phythopolis. And right now, Vindictive is claiming the constellation that's adjacent to Esoteria in Phythopolis. So I think we're gonna see more cleanup in Faith first, and then maybe Impasse after maybe 1DQ, or after some actions in Delve. Because as of right now, like Impasse is actually way further compared to Esoteria, with the jumps compared to T5Z. So that means, let's say if we're in a harsh battle or anything like that, it would be harder for Pappy to actually like help us and actually give us any support back or backups.
Wild. Oh, this is funny. Maria actually points out, LOL, I thought there were no Asbels in Pokvin. And Maria's right. In Tranquility server, there are no Asbels in Pokvin, so you will never see that image that we saw. But there are, in the test server where everything's being tested, there are still things in there. I think that's where that picture comes from.
Yeah, it would actually technically be against the rules to kill someone else's structure on Passion. You can't like blow up someone else's on CC.
On CC, right. Yeah, I was gonna say somebody just did. What a great view you have of this. Is that an Astero?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice looking. Okay, so thanks very much, Abby, for showing us around. This is the test server we're looking at. That's why you're seeing all the bright new colors and all the funny colors. Somebody asked another question. Are the colors on in the game yet? They are not. They'll be in later. We don't know when. We assume within a month or two. But this is just a blog coming out from CCP saying, hey, in the interest of making the game look as good as possible for as long as possible, we're upgrading our colors.
Yeah, it looks very pretty. Looks very bright, and I like it a lot. It's a nice change.
All right, cool. Okay, guys, thanks very much for hanging out with us. Abby, Rova, and Shen from Talking in Stations here. On behalf of the guys and myself, thanks for joining us today. We will see you tomorrow for more Talking in Stations.